Flash Professional has a robust font embed capability that allows us to embed unique typefaces and even specific characters within our project. This lesson will demonstrate this capability. So here I have a poem laid out in static text upon my stage. With static text, you don't have to worry about embedding fonts because when you compile your SWF, any of your static text gets compiled as outlines. In that way, even if someone is looking at it on a computer which does not have this font installed, they'll still be able to see it because it doesn't rely on the typeface itself. However, if I were to go in and use dynamic text in this case, you can see here it's changed already. I'm going to have to actually, in this case, embed at least a number of characters from the specific font that I've chosen. So the first thing we'll do is actually go in and change these paragraph settings to multi-line. Multi-line is something that's only applicable to dynamic text, and it allows us to have text across different lines in a text field. I can then go and within my character area here, you can see I'm using a font family called Decade. Now Decade, if we zoom in, you can see this is quite a decorative font. So it's not something that most people would have on their computers. It's not something like Arial or Verdana or any of the fonts that you would normally use if you're doing something like a website that you can rely on most people having. So the solution to this is to embed the fonts. So right here is this embed button. Pressing that button is going to open for us the font embedding dialog. So here we can name our font. So I'm going to call this Decade Embedded. We can choose the font family, so Decade is what I want. And now the important bit, we can choose which specific glyphs we want to include when we embed this font. So we can just choose all, but you can see here that choosing all is quite something. We're using 67 glyphs out of Decade, and Decade has many more. So that's 93,514 glyphs. If we embed all that, it's going to bulk up our file quite a bit. We don't want to do that. However, if we choose uppercase, lowercase, and punctuation, maybe even numerals, in this case, we're using basically 27 plus 27 plus 11 plus 5. So that's much less than this number right here. It's going to add a little bit, of course, to the size of our actual SWF, but not too much. You can also choose to include special characters in here simply by typing them. So perhaps I want to just include the ampersand and not all punctuation. I can do that. It's not a big deal. So here it tells us that the estimated glyphs used in that text field is 67, and it gives us information about the typeface. Font name being Decade, the ID, MACR, and what application generated this. And this information is going to change for every font that you choose. So if I go in here and say, you know what, I'm going to choose Euphemia, you can see that things changed in our little metadata box. So let's go back to Decade, as that's the one we want. So down here, you've also got font licensing information. And this actually brings us to a website on adobe.com that tries to go in and find out information about the specific font. And you can see it types out a list of registered vendors and so forth. And the idea behind this is that you would be able to, as long as someone has registered the font with Adobe, you'd be able to find out more information about licensing that font. So one other thing here, and that is the ActionScript tab. So this tab here allows us to choose from a variety of different options. We can choose between Classic and TLF. Classic text is what we're using here. You can see right there. And we can't use TLF because we have selected Classic and we're not using the text layout framework within this particular movie. We can also export this for ActionScript, in which case we'd be able to access the font in ActionScript by this class name, Decade Embedded. And it extends the base class flash.text.font. We can also export for runtime sharing if we want to by specifying a URL here. Then we can access it as a normal runtime shared library. So that should be good. And by the way, that message has just popped up. Basically, it told me that this class does not exist. So when I publish, it will create it for me. So I hit OK. So I'm going to hit OK again right here to close this out. So now, if I go into my library, we can see that, in fact, I have Decade Embedded as a font showing up in my library. This means anything I publish using Decade Embedded is actually going to render correctly across people's screens, even if it is dynamic text. And if I go in here and scroll up, we can see that we have a new font show up called Decade Embedded. So I'm going to make sure to choose that font, because if I keep this at Decade, it's simply not going to work. You have to make sure to switch the font over to the font that was just created and stored in the library. So this has been an example of how to use font embedding within Flash Professional CS6.